So last night, Republican Congressman Scott Perry, who represents the 4th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, not the wonderful GM of my New York Knicks, don't get them confused, claimed that the Islamic State was behind the Las Vegas massacre of 58 people in October. Stephen Paddock, a white man, was the person who gunned down those innocent civilians at the country music concert in October, but Scott Perry has somehow found a way to blame Muslim people. Let's see how he manages this.
Well, I smell a rat like a lot of Americans do. Nothing's adding up. It's been 4 months, as you said. The man's dead. They said he's a lone gunman, lone shooter, yet we can't get the autopsy results. But even more troubling than that, recently I've been made aware of what I believe to be credible evidence or credible information regarding potential terrorist infiltration through the southern border regarding this incident.
Terrorist
Yes, sir.
connections?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what's the outline of that? What would that...
Well, they could be, well, let's face it, ISIS twice before the attack. ISIS warned the United States that they would attack Las Vegas, I think in June and August. And then after the attack, claimed responsibility 4 times. Meanwhile, the local law enforcement investigative services are telling us there is no terrorist connection, lone gunman. Something's not adding.
Well, that's...
So listen to how he frames that. He provides zero evidence, says he can't give it to us either. Zero. But in one breath, he says that there was a terrorist infiltration through the southern border. Those are the dog whistles that allow the Republican base to say that's the other that does acts of violence like this, not us. And he loops the other into basically brown people coming from one scary place, the Mexican border. So in one sentence, he is able to kind of justify his insane right-wing ideology of militarism in the Middle East against ISIS, which has only, by the way, created more violence and radicalism in the region, and the cracking down on the southern border to make sure that we stop those Mexicans from coming in too. It just stokes fear. That's all it's designed to do. Othering, which is what he's doing, is a real political strategy, one that essentially strips the targeted minority groups of their humanity and kind of just portrays them as lawless, as dangerous, and groups them together. So Scott Perry is doing this seamlessly by othering 2 groups at once, 2 for the price of 1. Great. He's not alone in this strategy, obviously, or in this conspiracy. A day after the massacre, commentator Wayne Allen Root, self-professed warrior for God, guns, gold, tax cuts, term limits, Trump, and that tall, wonderful wall, tweeted out, "The shooting was a clearly coordinated Muslim terrorist attack." On October 4th, Laura Loomer made an appearance on Alex Jones's InfoWars to lay out her own theories. There are a lot of things that suggest that either this is some type of deep state cover-up or that Stephen Paddock has ties to Islamic terrorists, Loomer said. Whether it was a gun-running operation gone wrong, or in fact he was an ISIS operative himself. Lots of evidence to back that up, I'm sure. By the next week, the Gateway pundit published a piece entitled "Terror Expert Warns ISIS May Still Have Proof It Was Behind Las Vegas Attack." But the expert cited New York Times reporter Rukmini Callimachi later claimed she made no such assertion. And these reports of ISIS crossing the southern border have been proven false. Officially, by PolitiFact, it's in the title. They gave the claims a completely false rating because all of those Republican talking points about ISIS on the Mexican border basically originate from this one source, Judicial Watch, which is a right-wing conspiracy nut source. Trump's state campaign chair, Jeff DeWitt, made similar claims citing this source in the past. So has Representative Duncan Hunter of California. And Judicial Watch's reporting has been proven to be very faulty in the past. In 2014, Judicial Watch claimed that it had reports that ISIS was crossing the border and that an attack would happen within 36 hours. That obviously didn't happen. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson called the claims made categorically false. Judicial Watch similarly claimed in an April 2015 article that ISIS is operating a camp just a few miles away from El Paso, Texas, in an area known as Anapra, situated just west of Ciudad Juarez in the Mexican state of Chihuahua. Sorry if I butchered that. Several federal law agencies involved with border security said that the report was unverified and that it was unlikely ISIS is in Anapra or Juarez. And Ariel Mosatos Morales, Mexico's Minister for Press and Public Affairs, also disclaimed the report. The instances that Judicial Watch may be going off of, Border Patrol agents detained 5 Pakistani immigrants and 1 Afghan near the Arizona border in November 2015. However, U.S. Customs and Border Protection said that record checks on the immigrants revealed no derogatory information. 8 Syrians were also stopped at the Texas border in November of 2015, but DHS says that they were regular migrants. PolitiFact clarifies, yes, people with ties to the Middle East have been encountered at the border. Members of terrorist group Hezbollah entered the United States via the border sometime before 2005. But there is no evidence that terrorists linked to ISIS have crossed the border, and many public safety officials have said flatly that it hasn't happened. This is all phony, xenophobic, racist dog whistling that is made to do 2 things: instill fear in the hearts of Americans, and deflect from the gun control debate. Remember how Republicans and the NRA were united in support of bump stock legislation after the Vegas massacre? Nope, didn't happen. A month later, it was reported that bump stock legislation efforts had just stalled, and there has been nothing since then, except some state efforts, I know in Washington state, to ban bump stocks. But point being, this is more than just disinformation and racist propaganda. It is disinformation and racist propaganda with a specific purpose: to divert the eyes of the American people across the border, across the sea, towards people who may look different than white Americans or may practice a different religion than them, to make Americans think that this massacre that happened in Vegas has nothing to do with our own corruption in the United States and cannot be affected by our own gun legislation in Congress. No. It's brown people over there who may have, recruited this older white man, Paddock, to their cause. The corrupting influence of the Muslims, aided and abetted by the Mexicans. Right. Yeah, that's what they're trying to say. Creating an other is a really, really convenient strategy for someone who really doesn't want their own policies and their own inaction being looked at.